All right, joining me now, the first Tuesday of the month regular guest, the pitmaster of Killer Hogs Barbecue, and the creator of the fantastic website and YouTube page, that, of course, being How to BBQ Right. It is Malcolm Reed. Malcolm, how are you, buddy?
Hey, I'm good, Greg. How's it going, man?
I am absolutely fabulous. Malcolm, appreciate you making time for the show, as always. So plenty to talk about here. Obviously, May, big month in your world especially. But let's start with a refresher on proper Cleveland, Ohio manners, mister. You know, you can't come onto my turf and not even say hi. I mean, what does a guy have to do to get a little respect in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city? They don't call these the mean streets of Cleveland for nothing, pal.
Man, I didn't know how long I was going to be there, and I hate that. I wasn't in Cleveland very long. They pretty much picked me up at the airport, and we were shipped right out to
Wooster,
to their property. How do you pronounce that, Greg? It's,
Wooster.
Wooster, Ohio. And you know what? That was my first time to Ohio, but I had a great time, man. It's beautiful country up there. I was expecting, urban city and all that, but where we were, it looked like Mississippi, except everything was green.
Yeah, and it was like crappy weather, but I think to a large degree, Ohio is a smaller version of like how Chicago is. So we have the city of Cleveland. I mean, you have Columbus and Cincinnati, a couple other handful of, decent sized cities, but Cleveland is the city in Ohio, of course. So you would come in as you flew into Cleveland, I think it was. But you probably didn't even get near the city, and immediately you took down south. And as soon as you get 30, 40 minutes outside of Cleveland, I mean, it flattens out. It's farmland over and over and over again until you end up running down into Columbus. And, similar thing in Chicago. If you're not in the city, Illinois is nothing but farmland and nothingness. So, to a smaller degree, that's kind of like how Cleveland is. So let's talk a little bit about that journey that you took in Wooster for, a 48-hour whirlwind, if you will. What was the idea? Like, how were you approached, and what were they pitching to you as coming out to Wooster?
Well, I met Chef Michael Ollier from at Certified Angus Beef last year up at 17th Street at Mike and Amy's hog class they did. And he had told me that they do a BBQ Summit every year where they bring mostly it's restaurateurs, some social media influencers and things like that into their home office there. They have like a culinary center. And they pretty much just gave us a rundown, introductory to the Certified Angus Beef brand and what it stands for. We got to go in their meat cutting room and learn all the different cuts of a cow. We actually broke down the front quarter one day and then broke down the back quarter, the hind quarter one day. We did a sausage making class. We went out and toured a farm, and all this happened within 48 hours.
Yeah.
So it was jam packed. I didn't really have any downtime.
So was it pretty tight as far as distance? I mean, you weren't getting shipped out 30, 40 minutes away. It was all pretty tight to where their HQ is there in Worcester?
Well, everything happened at the culinary center there in Worcester. And the farm we went to, I think it was about a 35-minute bus ride. So it wasn't too bad. And we were out there it was like a breakfast that last morning. They took us out there and, did some cool stuff. I mean, I'd never seen sirloin steak cooked on a pitchfork, like fondue style in a big vat of oil, and they were doing donuts too, and it was pretty cool.
So what was the one or two things that maybe you didn't know about Certified Angus Beef, or that you didn't know altogether, that you're coming away with armed fresh with info?
Well, pretty much just the standards they hold to their brand. I don't know why. I just never put two and two together. There's a whole lot of beef brands out there, like there are chicken and pork. I mean, I just never really thought of it. I've seen Certified Angus Beef. Everybody knows CAB. Yep. But you see USDA Prime. You see, when we think of beef, we think of more the ratings, like, select, choice, high choice, prime, and then the Wagyu up there. But I really didn't have any firsthand experience learning about a brand of beef and, how it started and why it's, some of the better beef that you can actually buy.
Malcolm Reed joining me here on the show. How to BBQ Right is his website. How to BBQRight.com is the website. You can find him socially. How to BBQ Right on all the different social media channels, of course, and the Pitmaster Killer Hogs Barbecue. We'll get to that here in a second. Can we talk some beefer here for a second?
Yeah, man, I had those guys come in. That was some fun videos right there.
So for the folks that aren't familiar with beefer, and if you aren't able to see it, it's going to be perhaps a little bit of a difficult picture to paint. But best you can, tell us a little bit of a mental painting of what the beefer is, what it looks like, how it operates, and then we'll dig in a little bit from there.
Well, if you've ever been to like one of the higher end steakhouses where they serve these steaks that they cook and it's a high heat broiler. I'm talking 1,500 degrees temperature. You can imagine, and all of it cooks top down to where the heat's coming from the top of the unit, and whatever you put up close to it is just searing. It's just creating that crust, that kind of that quick sear on the outside. And while it, when you get your times down, it cooks the inside perfect. And that was what intrigued me about it. And I saw it a couple times last year at some different hardware shows. And the guys said they'd come out and show me how to operate one. So I jumped all over it. I wanted to learn more about it.
All right. So is this something where they just wanted to piggyback on your great YouTube following? It's easy for them to come out and kind of show their wares in front of a whole bunch of hundreds of thousands of different subscribers, and you're happy to have them because you were interested in the product, or were they compensating you in some way? How did that work out?
No, they did leave the beefer behind. It's still sitting on my counter. Yep. But so I guess that's what I got out of it. But it was one of those things where I met Chef Cooper from there, and he was a barbecue guy over in Georgia. So I kind of knew him, and me and him had traded emails before he ever got involved with the beefer. And so he kind of told me about it and told me how those guys were working. And they had a competition at the World Foods last year for the guys that didn't place. You were top 10, but you didn't make it. You didn't advance to the second round because you had to be top 5. And so I went and hung out because one of my friends made that. And I just, they were cooking some cool stuff on it. And it's more of something that you can just, it's not just for searing steaks. You can cook all kinds of things on it. And I thought it was pretty cool, man. I'm kind of a student of, so I wanted to, if there's something out there that I can learn, that's kind of the approach I took to it.
Yeah, so that's the question that I wanted to ask, because I would assume your backyard kind of looks like mine. You might have 5, 7, 8, 9 different cookers kind of littering the porch and the patio back there, all of varying different fuels and burn styles and so forth. So as you look at that one versus a Traeger or a Rectech or a Weber Gasser or a charcoal-driven cooker, how does this one rate, and how often do you see yourself really using it?
Well, it's not really, to me, I can't really compare it to a grill because there's no comparison. I mean, it's not a grill. It's a broiler. It's a high heat broiler. I mean, I could see myself using it, if I had some people come over and we were wanting to just cook some steaks and let everybody kind of get a hand at doing their own or something like that. Or, want a quick dinner. We've used it a few times just when I didn't feel like firing up a grill, and Rochelle can go out there and turn the beef her own, and we can have steaks in 10 minutes. So it's it's pretty handy and something like that. I see it as something to go along with your grill. I haven't played with like doing some reverse sears and actually using it to finish something. I think it would be great in that technique, but it's definitely a piece of equipment that would come in handy in your outdoor kitchen setup if you've got everything else. It's not going to be the be-all, end-all of grills or anything.
Are they trying to capture like a higher end mark? I mean, from the videos that I saw, you're doing maybe one at a time. You're letting one rest and kind of get to a certain internal temperature, the way he was going over how to cook those steaks. So it's not like you're going to be able to chuck 5 or 6 or 7 of those on. It's like one at a time type of a thing. Is it a higher end affluency market they're looking to grab?
Well, I would think so. I think it's so new to the United States that people really don't know where it's fitting in the market. But because over in Germany, where it originated, all the chefs are using it, but they're not into grilling as much as we are. They may not have the space or the access to good fuel, charcoal, propane, be it. But that's where they're finding it to use, and they're just trying to get some recognition out there, let people see it, and see where it fits in.
Do you know what the price point on those are, retail wise?
I believe the small one was like around 800. Wow. And the bigger one was like right at over 1,000 or 1,100, something like that. I didn't really look at the prices, what they said, but they're right in that price range. And there's some knockoffs out there already too. I think there's a few that are cheaper than that on Amazon. So it's something that you'll probably be seeing more of here in the next few years.
Malcolm Reed joining me here on the show. All right, Malcolm. So this is the month of May. That obviously means Memphis in May. We had talked about Memphis in May and some of the changes that were going to be going on in the venue here after this competition takes place in 2019, as far as looking ahead into that and were they going to have to move it and whatever is going on there. How is Memphis in May 2019 shaping up for you? I saw you doing kind of a rib practice type of a thing a couple days ago, and you had a number of racks on there. And certainly Memphis in May is a different beast altogether as far as competition. So you have to cook that kind of mass quantity of food depending on if you final or not. So how are you ramping up into the 2019 version at a run for a world championship?
Well, I've really been practicing trying to get these baby backs down because I've been cooking mainly KCBS contests, and we cook St. Louis cut spare ribs. So I had to, work back on some times, and I just ordered 24 racks of ribs, so I've got to cook a lot for Memphis, and that's why you keep seeing, putting pictures out there with me doing a lot. I'm just trying to figure out the smoke, how long it's taking, how long it's taking me to wrap that many ribs. We'll be running 2 pits. We'll be running 12 racks on each one. So we're just kind of, working out the timeline and dialing a few things and tweaking some recipes.
Are you going to be running?
Crossing our fingers.
Are you running a couple different cookers? Are you going to run a Jambo and then something else, or 2 of the same?
I'm taking 2 Old Hickory ACMMs, and I'm taking my Jambo as well. And then I'm taking a couple pellet grills. We're doing everything. We're doing all the ancillary contests. They even added a turkey breast contest this year, and I did a video today, and I'm not going to release it until next week because it's actually going to be the entry that I'm turning in. So I'm just trying to test it out.
Can you get involved in too many ancillary categories at these kind of events and put yourself behind the 8 ball, the stuff that's actually going to win you the overall grand championship, or you feel pretty confident that you're going to do all right no matter how many other stuff you get into?
Well, I think you absolutely can if you're trying to do it all yourself. What we use the ancillary contest for is I bring in some extra help from Memphis in May. So those guys want to cook something too and feel like, it's their own thing. So, I think the only thing I'm doing turkey and the seafood. Then I've got people doing chicken, hot wings, beef, exotic. So we're kind of spreading it out so everybody can do something. And then we'll all team up for the Saturday ribs.
Can you not do St. Louis style ribs?
You could. I mean, the rib category can be any style rib except country ribs. So you could do whole spare ribs, St. Louis cut, or loin back, baby backs.
All right, so what's the pitmaster mindset of going away from a cut of rib that you're used to, as you had mentioned with a KCBS, and then going to a loin back rib?
Well, traditionally, the loin back rib has been the Memphis style rib. Most of the contests around here, especially MBN, which is modeled on Memphis in May, they're all loin back ribs, and that's what those judges are used to seeing. So we're going to give them what they're used to seeing, but I'm also going to take some spare ribs just in case. I got a little curveball that I think I want to work on throwing in there. So I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag in case too many people listen. They get the same idea, but I'm coming in prepared.
Do you spend time over a 12-month period, since the last one ended to building up to where we're going to be at here in a couple weeks, and picking people's brains about flavors and profiles and tenderness, or do you think that it's more or less will remain the same in that regard? Holding the offsites or the onsites out of the equation at the moment, but just the cooking process, does that tend to remain the same, or do you have to evolve?
Well, it remains pretty close to the same. Mark West from Ten Bones has won ribs the past 3 years in a row, so I don't think it's changed a whole lot. We're all kind of chasing what he's doing. And so that's what I'm shooting for, to just not be outside the box at Memphis in May. You got to get lucky, but you got to cook a good rib too.
Can you approach him and pick his brain, or is he pretty guarded with what he does?
He'd probably tell me if I asked. Now I don't know if it'd be the truth, but he'd tell me something.
I mean, does it really go back to, I've had any number of KCBS pitmasters, obviously winners in Memphis in May, and most of the time when we talk about, let's say, doing cooking classes, you say, well, are you really telling everybody what you're doing and laying it all on the line like you say you are? And they said, well, yeah. And it always comes back to, I'll tell you exactly what I do. Where the disconnect is going to happen is I'm going to go one direction, you're going to go into another direction, and now you actually have to make that happen in your own camp at whatever contest you're going to be at. You subscribe to that?
I absolutely do. In this game, it's all on how you finish. We're all using a combination of the same kind of flavors for the most part. Everybody's smoking with some wood. We're cooking a tender rib. So, the only way you can really, set yourself apart is nailing everything, every aspect of it. So, and that's what makes it hard. It's a challenge. Even every rack that I cook won't turn out exactly the same. So I've got to pick the best that I have that day, get them turned in, and then hope I get some luck too, and then hope the judges that come on site. That's the whole other animal too, the on-site factor. So you never know.
Do you spend a lot of time going through some kind of a prep as far as on-sites are concerned if you final there?
Not anymore. I used to when we first started, but now that's the fun part of the whole thing. A lot of guys get caught up and they get nervous, or they don't like the on-site. But that's really, to me, that's the part to where experience can shine, to where you've done it, and I look forward to it because I try to sit down like I'm sitting here with you and have a good conversation, make them feel at home, and then tell them something about the ribs I cook, and hopefully they it wows them.
Do you buy into the fact that if a judge shows up to my site, let's say I final, and they show up to me, and they don't know me from any Tom, Dick, or Harry, but then they show up to a Chris Lilly or a Melissa Cookston or a Mike Mills, I mean, the list goes on and on. For these folks that have been on television that also do the Memphis in May, the Orsons from the Shed, a lot of television time, a lot of being under pressure and being able to produce words and do all the sentence structure and all that good stuff, sell it, if you will. Is there how do you view that? Is that a work against those guys and they have to overcome a bigger hurdle because they're being tested more, or do you think that there is kind of a judges being starstruck and maybe I'm not saying they're not working as hard, of course, but do they get a little bit of a free pass if they were to make some type of an error in a open presentation like that?
Well, I think a lot of it's human nature when it comes to that, because they've seen these guys and they know kind of what to expect. You kind of have a higher standard for those teams that make it year in and year out. So it is more difficult, and I think that's why you see a lot of the same ones winning. I mean, they're great cooks. They were there, for a reason to begin with. They can only do something wrong to hurt themselves, because I'm sure they go in at a pretty high score just because of the names of a lot of them. But it is harder for a guy that's never made it to jump in there with them. I mean, you have to really, really have some good product that day to beat them. Because I've done it myself. I've beat other teams with lesser barbecue just because we outsold them, and that's part of it. That's the game we're playing there.
When you are leading up here to Memphis in May, and obviously we'll get the recap when you come in June, like how are you feeling right now on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm going to say a 10, but I always feel like that going in. You have to ask me Saturday morning.
Have you heard anything about this big impending Memphis in May social media sponsor?
No, I haven't. The only thing that I've been the buzz around here, man, is the construction they're fixing to start in June. They supposedly have the bulldozers ready to tear everything up. So it's I hate to say it, but it's not looking good for us for next year.
And we'll see how that transpires. But he is leading up to the Memphis in May World Championship. When is that again?
It is not this weekend, but next weekend. We actually start Saturday, Greg. We start loading in. So we're just a few days away from that, but the contest will be next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, a week away.
All right, a week away. So we'll look forward to that, and we'll get the full recap as we meet again the first Tuesday of June. In the meantime, you can check them out at howtobbqright.com. Follow them on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter. Same handle, howtobbqright.com. It is Malcolm Reed, the pitmaster of Killer Hogs Barbecue Team. Malcolm, always appreciate the time.
Hey, thanks, Greg. It's always fun. I got to get you down here to Memphis in May one year, man.
1 year, I promise. We'll do it.
Got to.
All right, man.
Have a good one.
There is a 0% chance that I'll be going to Memphis.